Hey there, hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk about a post I saw on LinkedIn a couple of days back, and I had reshared that as well. It was along the lines of the new M1 MacBook Pros apparently cut Android build times in half, right? So I think the author of that post had mentioned that if you invested a certain amount of money in it, it would actually give you back a whole lot more, right? I think I reshared that, and I just want to do a video on it because I couldn't agree with that anymore than I actually already did, I think, in that reshare, because I felt this all my career. Sorry. Uh, how long it takes for you to do something, not once but repeatedly, makes all the difference as a developer, right? If I did something just one time, let me take an analogy, maybe a good one or not so good one, it doesn't matter. Let's say if you're eating junk food, I'm pretty certain, I'm not an expert in that field either, but I would imagine that if you just had junk food once, it probably is not going to hurt you, right? But if you did that regularly, I'm pretty certain it's going to, right? We all know it's going to hurt us. So along those lines, if you did something just once, and if it took quite a bit of time, or if you did that in the not so efficient, in the not in the most efficient manner, I think it's all right. You could live with it because you're never going to do that activity again. But if you're going to do that repeatedly on a daily basis during the course of your work or project or your product development, then you have to keep an eye on it, a close eye on it, because I've seen this happen time and again, where in this case it's a question of hardware, getting better hardware so your team actually can be more productive. And hardware is, as expensive as these machines are, they are certainly a whole lot cheaper than people like us, right, as engineers and folks who are doing this work. So I think it would make sense for companies to invest in hardware. It's probably an additional $1,000, $500, whatever it is. Give the developer what they want so they can be efficient. And I couldn't be more certain that it would give you back as an employer whole like 10 times or many times more, right? Because if I enjoy doing what I do, I'm going to do more of it. I mean, that's natural, right? I'm going to do more of it. It doesn't matter that you as a client might be paying me for like a 40-hour week. I'm just speaking of that not as a CTO of Snowpal. I'm just talking about it as a consultant, because that's part of my life as well. So if once a developer enjoys what they do, they're going to do more of it, and you're going to get back that much more. So what are you trying to save? Saving pennies on the pound, is that what they say? It's actually foolish, right? So I think it's important to spend on hardware where you can, right, to the extent you can. And similarly, keeping an eye on activity that happens repeatedly is actually very important because it's going to eat up your time. And I'll take an example from like many years ago. I remember working in a project. I can't remember where, when, or how, but I do recall this. And I might have shared this in one of my earlier videos as well. I saw the team run unit tests as part of the coding activities, right? So they would load all of these beans into memory, and the way the app was set up on the server side, even if you wrote 10 lines of code and made a change to one of the beans from a dependency injection standpoint, the way it was configured and set up was it had to load a whole lot of other beans before it can actually run your test. So what that meant was it actually took maybe 2, probably even 3 minutes, if memory serves me right, to actually run the test. So you wrote 10 lines of code, you're trying to verify if it worked, and you would run the test, it would load all the dependencies, and then it would take 3 minutes for that test to complete. And then you make some more changes, you do it again, it's 3 more minutes, right? I mean, I would hope that most engineers write few lines of code, test it, verify it, however you test it, right? BDD, TDD, whatever it is that you like or what works for your company and team. You want to do that as frequently as possible. What you don't want to do is like write hundreds of lines of code without testing, because it's going to, if it doesn't work, and trust me, it probably is not going to work, it's going to be hard for you to tell what failed, right? So it's not efficient. So you want to write 10 lines, 5 lines, 15 lines, whatever it is, and not have to rebounce any of your servers so the hot deployments happen. You shouldn't even have to refresh the browser if you're doing UI work. That way you can make the changes, and within a second you can tell, a couple of seconds you can tell if your change works or if it doesn't work. So going back to my example, it took 3 minutes. And I think, let's say the average developer, let's say we did this, I don't know, maybe 50 times a day. I would imagine it's hundreds more if you're writing 10 lines and testing it like I do. But let's say if they did it like 50 times, is that a fair number? I think so, right? 50 times, 8-hour day, you're doing about 6 times an hour. That's like every 10 minutes, which I think is a much smaller number. One would hope that we write more code than that, but regardless, I think it's a fair number. So if they did it 50 times, that's 150 minutes. Let's be conservative. Let's say the test took 2 minutes to load and run. 100 minutes, right? Or let's make it 120, right? Just for easier math. So it's about 2 hours of the developer's time. And then I think the team had like 10 to 12 engineers at the time actively working on it. So that's like 24 human hours of work actually completely wasted, right? I mean, what else could you be doing in the 2 minutes? If it took like 20 minutes, you could at least grab a cup of coffee, maybe even have lunch and come back. So maybe it provided some other value. But if it's like 2 minutes, you can't do anything useful, whether it's work related or non-work related. And why am I talking about this in the context of machines? Because even though it doesn't necessarily relate to a machine, even if everything else, assuming ceteris paribus conditions, even if everything else were to have been just the same, if the machines were more powerful, maybe the test would have taken maybe 1 minute instead of 2, which means you cut your total time wasted by 100%, right? So it's down to like 12 hours now. The cost of paying the engineers, developers, full-time employees, whatever, whoever they were, I'm pretty positive, pretty certain it would have been a whole lot more than the cost of those upgraded machines. And if you as an engineer went up to your management and asked for an upgrade, depending on the company again, right? I mean, I've been working for smaller companies for a long time, but I do work with larger clients as well. So it depends on your company, on the amount of red tape and bureaucracy that's there. This may work, this may not work, it may happen, it may not happen, right? So what happens is, unfortunately, sometimes companies make the wrong choice. I have to say, I feel pretty strongly about it. They make the wrong decision to save a few dollars here and there when they actually probably can afford it, because they're still paying you as an engineer. They're paying you that much more. So they should probably rethink this, whatever it is, to make to improve their efficiencies, right? So I felt the urge to record this because of that post. Thanks to the author, I don't remember the name, sorry, from a few days ago, and the fact that my first experience my first recollection of experiencing this inefficiency was over a decade ago, right? And come to think of, to think that in 2021 we might still run into those situations, very same situations. It seems, it's surprising, but not so surprising, right? So keep an eye. Efficiency is not a one-time thing, or it's not what you do once in a while. It is what happens repeatedly. And how do you improve your processes, systems, machines, put the right word in, the words you like, right, to making your team and organization more efficient. I think it's very important. And the smaller the company you are, the more important it becomes. At Snowpal, we are extremely ambitious, and hopefully our product is a reflection of that. And if you haven't already checked us out, go to snowpal.com, sign up, get organized, and download our app from the App and Play Store as well, and tell us what you think. But I think we can't afford to be inefficient. We don't want to be, we don't like to be, and honestly we can't afford to be. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what you think. Thanks.